Hello, welcome back to the Villa View. It's time for a post-match pint in association with Purity Ale. If you want to get 20% off everything Purity have to offer, use the code #VillaView and it'll get you 20% off everything that Purity have. I'm Dan Bardell here with Neil Dunworth to talk through Aston Villa 2, Leicester City 4. Bizarre score, not the kind of score I was expecting to be introducing today. Neil being overlooked by Snoopy the dog. How are you?
I'm very good. Yeah. There was a couple of cartoonish goals that we conceded. All right,
It really was.
But yeah, I think I'm okay. It looked very much like a team that were still learning and couldn't change on the fly, if that makes sense. In the middle of the game, and we conceded, some very, very poor goals, and I'm sure we'll get onto it in a moment.
Yeah, you say about like learning on the job. I felt like we didn't learn very much on the job because we made so many mistakes, and you can't make that many mistakes at that level and expect to not get punished. Even though Leicester are near the lower end of the table, any team in the Premier League, if you gift them goals, will probably take the opportunity. Except for Leeds, probably at the moment because they can't score to save their lives. But Villa, I didn't think we were bad. I didn't think we were brilliant either, but you cannot defend like that at the highest level without getting punished, as I say. And despite a good start, again, attacking the whole 10 first half, scoring an early goal, that must be the fourth or fifth time now that Villa have scored an early goal, attacking the whole 10 first. But unfortunately, this time now, it wasn't built upon. But yeah, I mean, I suppose we start with that first goal. Ollie Watkins. Villa were playing some nice intricate stuff at that point. The ball comes out to Buendia on his left foot. He has a lovely shot off the underside of the bar. And Watkins, in fairness, instinctive striker's predatory. I thought he took that goal really well and reacted really quickly, which was pleasing to see.
Yeah, because it's been one of the things that this season he hasn't done. There's been a couple of opportunities where he hasn't gambled to get on the end of crosses or he hasn't chased things in. And since Unai Emery has come in, we've seen him do that a lot more. He did it against Spurs when Hugo Lloris spilled the ball, and he's done it again at the weekend. And, if he can pad his goals out, because he's never been or he's never going to be that striker. It's going to pick the ball up outside the area, skin two people and smack one in from 25 yards. He's going to need to pad his numbers by getting those dirty goals and getting those ones where he gets across the defender or gets on the end of a spilled ball. And he needs to kind of turn himself into a Filippo Inzaghi type striker. One of those guys that's just always there in the mud and the dirt, ready to kick the ball in, because sometimes he's that guy that when he's got too much time, it doesn't work out for him. And I'm glad. I thought it was a pretty decent finish as well, to be able to get that ball in at such short notice when it came across to him.
Yeah, I'd describe it as a smart finish. Not, again, as I say, not a nice little bit of play from Villa building in to kind of create that box in midfield when they're attacking in terms of the wide players come up inside. I think Ramsey was somewhere on the scene. I don't think he was involved in the goal, but he come very central for that goal as well. And Watkins follows up and puts Villa one ahead. And you think, right, great. When we've scored these early goals, we've gone on to win the game. Unfortunately, 3 minutes later, try and dissect this because it's a bad one. They're playing out from the back. Look, there's going to be people that absolutely hate it and that will do nothing but complain about it. And in fairness to them, yesterday, you've probably got a little bit of a right to have a moan because it didn't work for us. We didn't come out the good side of it. I say it's the defenders that usually we get nervous about playing out from the back. Not I say we. I talk about the Villa fan base, a certain section of them. It seems to be when the ball comes into in the central midfield that we seem to be having the problem, because that's now Luiz, Dendoncker and Kamara who've been pickpocketed and we've conceded goals. So the mistakes for these kind of goals from playing out the back haven't come from the centre back. My first question to you would be, should Martinez play the pass? But then I guess Kamara's there looking for it. So Emi Martinez would say that's part of the plan, that's part of the setup. But it did seem a little bit too dangerous.
Yeah, the still shots. So in the moment, I didn't see. I thought, okay, it's okay to play to Kamara because we've seen that a couple of times before, and it's not been a big issue. And when you see the still shots afterwards, and you see how much easier the other passes were that Martinez had on, it was like you're like looking at it going, what were you thinking? But the funny thing is, we would have been in a better position if Boubacar Kamara had let that ball even just go through his legs. The fact that he stopped it and where he stopped it. And the same with Leandro Dendoncker when he had that ball at the edge of his area. He would have been better letting the ball run through his legs, because at least at that stage, he could turn around and face up the guy striking the ball. Whereas when he gets dispossessed, it's a one-on-one, and it should be a goal at every single time, unless Emi Martinez channels his save from the World Cup final. But I think, Kamara needs to do better. He needs to do better in that instance as well. I think that, with the setup of the players there should be this fail-safe as well. If he does receive that ball, then he knows that he just chips it out to the wing. You see how wide Ashley Young was. You see how wide Luca Dean was. A chip pass out to the wing there, direct as the ball comes to him, he just plays it straight away. It doesn't even take a touch. It's less dangerous if you feel that there's going to be three players converging on you, and they pressed him really, really quickly. So I think my synopsis on it this morning was, sorry, in case I die live on camera. My synopsis was that Kamara should have done better, but looking at where the rest of the players were situated, the risk wasn't worth the reward. And I think a pass out to Ashley Young, I think regardless of who was given the ball, whether it was Martinez's initial pass or when Kamara gets the ball, I think the ball out to Ashley Young was the ball, because he looked like he was primed and ready and he had acres in front of him. So it's a bit of a calamity of a lot of reasons, I think.
I think the thing I find most frustrating about it, weirdly, is not the fact he got pickpocketed. It's more the fact that they converged on him, and I kind of felt like he got himself out of it, and then he tried it again. Yeah. So he went that extra time. It was almost like he didn't learn straight away from that first time. Oh, I've nearly given the ball away there, and then he tried to do it again and got robbed. And then after that, as you say, Leicester should score. They nearly make a mess of it. I mean, one of the wildest slides I've ever seen from Ezri Konsa. He nearly ended up in the dugout. His stand, he went absolute, or the Trinity, I can't remember which way it was, but he dives in to try and block it, goes absolutely flying, and that they took it just past Mings. Of course, it was James Maddison, who's barely played over the last month or so. Of course, he's back just in time to play against Villa. He puts it in. It's 1-1. But then Villa, to be fair, I didn't think we sunk, but I didn't think we were quite the same after we made that mistake. It almost made us a little bit nervy when we were on the ball. We weren't popping the ball around as well as we were at the start of the game. Watkins had that chance where it was probably easier to score. I don't know how it's not even just hit him and gone in. So they're out.
I'm a lot more empathetic to him in that one, because the keeper gets
I'm not going to go to him. I just can't believe it hasn't just hit him and gone in.
Oh, yeah. Like by laws of averages,
Yeah, you feel like it should just hit him and go in, but somehow it does, and he does take. I think he does take a nick on the way through. You're right as well, and he hasn't.
The keeper gets a full hand to it and pushes it onto his back leg. For me, but
How does it not hit him and go in? So you sat there thinking, bloody hell, we never score a scrappy goal. We never get lucky. We never get any luck. And then a few minutes later, Watkins puts a cross in on his left foot, hits Suter, wrong foot to Danny Wood, and we're 2-1 up. Completely forgot to talk about something I wanted to talk about. Kind of Watkins' celebrations. So for the first goal, he kind of gave it the calm, don't worry, I'm the striker. I've got this. And it got me back thinking about the first season when he was pretty much our only striker. He had no real competition, and he shouldered that responsibility well. It was almost like Danny Ings being there and settled him a little bit. Now, I think both of them tried to make that partnership work, and when they're on the pitch at the same time, they tried to make it work. But I almost feel like Watkins is more comfortable, makes him a better player, knowing that he is the starter, that he's the guaranteed number 9, if that makes sense. His celebration for that first one kind of said, calm, I'm here. I can do this, believe in me. That's what I read into it. I could be completely wrong.
I genuinely think the birth of his child has had an effect on him over the last couple of last few months. Even you look at stuff like that, like things getting away. Like that picture of him on social media sleeping in the cot with the kid. There's times when you just did you not see that? No, and I think it's very endearing, and like any father would do it. If you're up all night, if the child is screaming or whatever, and if you get into the cot, you have to get into the cot and calm the child down. And his partner or his wife or whatever she is took a video of them on the monitor and put it up on her social media.
That's what
but little things like that, can settle a guy. But I suppose on the other side of it, he's a professional as well, and he's not the only guy who's ever had a kid and played professional football either. But so I just put that in tangentially, But I think you could be right. I think there was probably an understanding between Danny Ings and Ollie Watkins that they wanted to make it work. They know each other. They know the game of football. They probably knew that they weren't going to be able to make it work. You know, two up top wasn't working. Steven Gerrard wasn't going to play. Wasn't the man for the job. And when Unai Emery comes in, they're not the two guys that are being played up front. And there could be something in that bringing in another striker could unsettle him. But at the end of the day, he's got no right to want to only be the only striker of the club either, because, considering he's a converted forward. So Villa are going to bring somebody in, and if Danny Ings unsettled him, the next striker might come in and unsettle him, and that's something he needs to get over. But I'm delighted. Like, as I say, I'm not an anti-Ollie Watkins man. I don't think Ollie Watkins is poor. I have him in my team. Even if Danny Ings is here. If you play the two of them together, I just think that like Ollie Watkins, and it's funny because I've been looking at a lot of the numbers, and I've got a podcast I'm going to bring out maybe next week. A lot of the numbers that they have, when you adjust them obviously for 90 minutes and you adjust them for sample sets with regards to percentages, they're very similar. Like, as in, like, a lot of people say, oh, Ollie Watkins misses more chances. Danny Ings missed, percentage-wise, Danny Ings missed the same percentage of chances in a given
surprise me, actually,
than Ollie Watkins. So it's like, I'm not going to say that eyes and minds play tricks on people, but I suppose you have to be fair to somebody when you're making a judgment on them too. And while I would have kept that Danny Ings around as well, and I would love to have him in the squad, if Ollie Watkins is unsettled by having the spectre of another striker there, that's something he needs to get over. But he doesn't have that other striker other than John Duran now, and I hope he goes and gets double figures for Villa again for the third season in a row, and ends up our top scorer, because I think that he's a very useful player.
Yeah, and then, you know, we get to the 40th minute, and Villa are 2-1 up. You get to half-time whistle, Villa are 3-2 down. Peak Villa there. You wouldn't have expected that on 40 minutes. Like I said, I don't think we were playing as well as we did at the start of the game, or we have done perhaps in some away games, but I thought we were okay. I felt like we were relatively in control of the game, and Leicester have an attack down the left-hand side. Mings cuts out the initial cross, and then the ball ends up coming back in eventually. I think it's not great from Mings and not great from Luca Dean either from watching the goal back to that. Iheanacho only gets dragged out against Villa. Only plays against Villa. Always scores against us. He must have scored more goals against Villa than anyone else. In fact, I think we said in the show on Friday with Stata that's the case. Mings kind of gets the first clearance, does very well with the first clearance. Ball comes in and he's watching the ball, Mings, and Luca Dean's looking at completely the wrong man and not tucking in my opinion, from watching that back, and for him to be completely unmarked ahead of him, he's not going to miss that. Iheanacho, he's not offside. Villa were looking for an offside. That there wasn't one, and it was a poor goal. That's the kind of thing that Mings, I feel, has cut out of his game. Not really been aware of what's behind it. He did have a little look as well, but didn't really adapt his position. And as I say, Luca Dean, he's looking at a man who's already taken, doesn't see the danger, isn't alert to the danger, and doesn't bring himself inside. And it's a poor goal, and you're level, and you've given Leicester a chance, and they've got the tails up.
There's a reason Luca Dean was taken off at half time, and it was because,
you think it was that?
I think it was that, and I think it was the next goal. I think that Luca Dean, it was like, after the Liverpool game, I was critical of Luca Dean's defending, specifically with regards to Salah's goal and the goal that Virgil van Dijk scored, because I think that he just doesn't have that ability to be able to turn on his radar when he's in the box. He lost Salah's run for Salah's goal. Yes, it was a super cross, but you check your man there, you stand in his way, you don't let him run. Digne lost him off the shoulder. And then for the goal for Virgil van Dijk, Digne is too busy marking Salah, and the ball is going out of play, and Digne keeps it in with a header, and it drops to I think it actually drops to Salah, who feeds it out to Virgil van Dijk, who blasts it into the back of the net. And consequently, then we look at this game again here. Luca Dean doesn't communicate or doesn't take a gamble and track Iheanacho. He should have. He knows the distance between himself and Mings. It becomes his man in that instance there, specifically when it's the main striker. He doesn't go to him, and he doesn't take him. The communication looked all off between the back four all game.
Were you surprised he changed the back four? Because I've got to be honest, I'd have kept Moreno. It's easy with hindsight, but Moreno to me looks better both ways, in my opinion, at the moment.
I think so too. Now, Moreno obviously has a howler for the fourth goal.
He does.
Well. but like the net positive there with Moreno was we look way better going forward with him. And Luke Dean, big reason that people were very high in Luke Dean. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going in 2-footed on him. I actually wouldn't mind seeing Moreno and Dean playing on that wing with Moreno behind Dean. If you want to play Dean as a left winger, go for it. Have at it. Let him cross the ball in all he wants. I've no problem with that. And I don't want Luke Dean sold or anything like that, but he was not having a good game. And the substitution was the right one, I think, in that instance. But I was surprised that he changed it up. And I think probably the reason that he did was because just because Luke Dean had a better understanding with the back four. And as we saw there, when the communication isn't right, the back four doesn't tend to get it right on the night. And the communication was all off for the first 45 minutes for sure. And minutes as well, because that fourth goal wasn't anything to write home about either.
Yeah, I mean, you said you don't want to go 2-footed in Luke Dean, and I'm not doing that either. But do you think questions are starting to emerge for him? He had a decent spell towards the back end of last season where he got a few assists and was involved in a couple of goals. But overall, for what we paid for him, Villa haven't had a return on their investment at all. And the fact that we have had to bring in another left back probably tells you everything that you need to know. There's a better player in there somewhere, but Villa haven't unlocked it at the moment. At the moment, for that fee, I would say Everton have had our pants down. I just don't think he's contributing enough either way. You could almost forgive the defensive sloppiness if he was providing assists and was a constant outlet out wide. But just much of a muchness from him. I'm not. He's not there having horrific games. He's not impacting the game going forward at all. And he's culpable at times, I think, for a bit of defensive naivety, positioning-wise for me. So I think at the moment with that transfer, has he been a massive upgrade on target? I wouldn't say so. And again, I don't want to hammer the guy, but I think realistically, I don't think he's done it other than score a free kick against Manchester United. I don't think he's done anything that Matt Targett wouldn't have done. In fairness, he hasn't been that big upgrade that I thought he'd be. And I'm just a little bit underwhelmed by him. I did the same. Alfie's Reef, I predicted that. Shows how good predictions are. I predicted Luke Dean to be Player of the Year this season. God knows how I've had any form of media career with predictions like that. And I've always liked him as a player, but watching him every week at Villa, I'm not seeing it. I want to, but I'm not seeing it now.
Yeah, as I say, the one thing that annoys me, I'm not actually too annoyed with his defensive ability in the main.
Yeah,
I think he commits too high up the field. But as I said, the big thing is he doesn't know how to track runners, or if he does, he doesn't do it diligently enough. He's 30 years of age now, and maybe that might have something to do with it. Like everybody, like Father Time knocks on everybody's door at different ages. Some, like you see Ashley Young on the other side of the field. It looks like Father Time forgot his address, but maybe players are slowing up a bit earlier. Maybe Luke Dean he's had some injury histories in the past. Maybe it's just all catching up with him at the moment. But I think there's still, like, obviously he's going to contribute an awful lot for Aston Villa over the course of the rest of the season. And as I say, this isn't the case of get him gone, get him out of my club or anything like that. It's just he needs to brush up on those intricacies. So when somebody gets on his shoulder or when he sees somebody making a run, he needs to take responsibility. Like he was club captain. He was captain for Everton.
He was in the leadership group, yeah.
Yeah, he was in the leadership group, and I think he's in our leadership group as well. So that's what I expect leaders to do, is to take that gamble and to try and track runs in the box. I think is probably the biggest thing, and it's difficult because strikers are really good at that movement in the box, but I just expect more effort from him in that instance as well. And like, as I say, if he starts against Man City at left back, I've no problem. I'll cheer him on. I'll really support him. I've no problem with him starting in the team. But when things go wrong for him like that, they tend to get shown up again and again in that game. And does he have the ability to recover from stuff like that? I just want to see that in him as well.
It's just awareness. That's the bit with him that gets me. And at the moment, the way Emery sets up with the right back tucks in and the left backs. Huh? You there? Can you hear me? No? Yes? No? No? Okay, I'll just say what I was going to say anyway and hope that Neil comes back. So the way Emery sets up at the moment...
I think I've lost all you guys.
Okay. Well, we can hear you. That's not going to make a very good show, though. Neil obviously has bodged his setup today and he's just come on. He might have to come off and come on, you might have to message him, Adam Producer, and I'll pad in the meantime say what I was going to say. Oh, you can hear me again?
No,
No? You got me now?
Yeah, I can hear you again. Yeah, I can hear you again.
I mean, all kinds of communication issues here. This is like Villa's defence all over from yesterday here. So what I was going to say was the right back tucks in Emery's system. The left back plays really high up, which is fine when you're Moreno, who's got a bit of pace. But when you're Luca Dean, you got to be able to get back in, and I don't think he's got the mobility to get back in. You know, sometimes when fans and players and clubs, you'll say they sold that player at the right time. At the moment, I think Everton may have done that. They may have just about, but pure luck because Everton are terribly run. I think they might have sold him at the right time because he's not the player he was a few seasons ago, Luca Dean. But happy to be proved wrong. Hopefully he does prove me wrong. It's just the awareness at the moment defensively. I just don't think it's there.
And it's the thing, Dan, as well. Look, you see, it becomes harder to justify when both of your top earners in Luca Dean, who's apparently on 160K a week, and Philippe Coutinho, and Danny Ings was our next highest earner. When the three of those guys are the guys that you're kind of looking at, and they're 30 and above, wrong side of it, or catching the wrong side of it, you know, it becomes less and less. You become less and less able to carry that kind of stuff, you know, as well. So when the determination on those players is coming, it comes from the balance sheet as well as the play on the field. And as you say, Luca Dean still has a lot in the tank, but I think that, you know, the club won't be able to grin and bear 160K a week and a 26 odd million transfer outlay on a player that may look like they're in decline. But as I say, we're not going in 2-footed on him. It's becoming more in-depth conversation.
Inadvertently, I think we are. Inadvertently, I think we have done a little bit.
Well, I don't want to come across that way because, as I say, my biggest thing with him is just tracking of runners, and it's difficult to do. But you know, if he needs to practice it, he needs to practice it. And it was the reason that we conceded 2 of the goals. I firmly believe the Tete goal was another one, the third goal. I think that comes from Luca Dean's side. Luca Dean lets him run and drift across, and there was absolutely no attempt to get in his way. Even, you know, you get in players' ways when you know where they're going, and there was no attempt to do that either. So, but look, as I say, if he starts against Manchester City, I'll cheer him to the rafters because he's a good player. He should have been in the French squad only for injury this season for the World Cup. So, you know, it's just nuance. That nuance of his game, I think he needs to up.
Yeah, I just want to say more. Like you say, you've listed a load of reasons there why we should expect more. And I'm not seeing it at the moment, and I'd like to. But as I say, I'm not hammering him. Just asking some questions because there's things that concern me. Within that third goal, I didn't put as much blame on him as perhaps you, but it is the same kind of combination. It's a completely different type of goal. But you're kind of looking at it's like a mashup of the first 2 goals, isn't it? Because Kamara gets caught on the board in the middle of the park. And then you feel like Mings and Luca Dean aren't really aware of what's going on around them, perhaps, and Tete darts in. This might sound a little bit harsh, and don't mean it to. I would look at Martinez for that third goal, and maybe not blaming him, but I think he comes flying out. I think that makes up Tete's mind for him. If he holds his ground a little bit, the option to go around him just isn't there. But Martinez comes flying out, gets absolutely nowhere near it. Tete rounds him. And he scores. You know, Martinez isn't culpable for the ball getting through to him. A lot's happened wrong for it to get through to Martinez. But Martinez kind of said something himself after the game that he shouldered a little bit of the blame. And I do wonder whether he looks back at that third goal and thinks, I was too rash there. I was too quick coming out. I don't think there's any need for him to come flying out at that point. As soon as you do that, you completely make up the mind of the attacking player, and Tete's easily gone around him because Martinez is absolutely nowhere near wiping him out or getting the ball, and they score. So it's accumulation of things before it gets to Martinez. It's just again and again, you know, we've gifted them a goal. Yeah.
I'm not so sure that Kamara wasn't fouled in the build-up of that.
I thought in real back to know. I watched Match of the Day, but I don't know. They didn't show any replays of it for me to. If that had been given against us, we'd be saying it was soft.
Well, there was one given against us against Southampton that we weren't saying was soft, you know. But I can see what you mean by the Martinez stuff there, and like one of the, you know, you said you've been proven wrong with your predictions and stuff like that recently, and I was terrified of Tete because I'd done a bit of a study on him, And I knew he was out there and he was open to and willing to come to the Premier League. And there was about 5 or maybe even 6 Premier League teams trying to sign him. And he ended up signing at Leicester. Leicester probably just jumped on it quicker, probably put the money on the table. And I think
their head of recruitment was at Southampton and tried to sign him at Southampton.
Yeah.
So he's moved over to Leicester. This is his first window. He's been active and been able to work. So it's got his fingerprints all over it. I think Glover's his name, head of recruitment.
Yeah, and I think a lot of teams were trying to sign him on a full deal, but Shakhtar wanted to, because he was on loan at Lyon, Shakhtar wanted to get him back probably and up his fee, I suppose, essentially in the summer and get more of a bidding war. But I thought that Villa might have been interested in him. I thought he fitted the Premier League when I looked at him. And I said in my pre-match, I said, I hope this guy doesn't prove me right in this game, but goes on to score 10 goals over the course of the rest of the season. And what does he do? I thought he had a really good game. I thought he looked really good. I thought their left back, Christensen, looked really good. I thought he just knew how to defend one-on-ones, albeit Bailey was very average against him. With
Bailey had one of those games again where he can't do anything right.
Yeah, it was just he just kept on trying to run through him. At times, but it was like as if Christensen, the first. Sorry, we've gone completely off topic here, but the first one or two. That's what do. The first 1 or 2 dribbles that Bailey had at him, Christensen was really good, and he got in the way, and Bailey tried to go down the side, and then after that, it was like it became a personal battle between Bailey and him, as opposed to maybe keep going down wide, keep trying to get in around him. He tried to go through him, and then it almost became a kind of an aggression style with his running. But getting back to Tete, that goal that he scored, as I say, you're not wrong to think that Martinez should have stayed standing up. I just don't know how much of a difference it would have made in that moment. And I seem to be going off the screen. I'm back.
Yeah, I mean, according to what I'm looking at here, he's called Cardoso Lemos Martins is his actual name, but they've shortened it to Tete, as that is a little bit of a mouthful, and you won't get that on the back of the shirt. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, Villa have gone from a position of being 2-1 up. Oh, Neil's gone again. Villa have gone from a position of being 2-1 up, and then somehow inexplicably going in 3-2, not really learning from mistakes. Because as I say, that third goal was the accumulation of the first 2 goals. In my opinion, there was elements of the first 2 goals in the third goal that we gave away. So the changes are made at half time, which we've discussed. With hindsight, I think taking Jacob Ramsey off was a mistake. I always think he should be on the pitch for us. I think he provides something unique. He's a spark for us. I prefer the way he runs with the ball for Villa than anyone else in our team. And Jacob Ramsey was taken out and Bailey left on. Bailey didn't have a good game. So as I say, with hindsight, perhaps Bailey could have come off rather than Ramsey. Villa huffed and puffed in the second half. Played some nice football at times. There was, again, like there was in the defeat to Liverpool, there was a spell where we had loads of the ball and Leicester couldn't get out, but we didn't capitalise. Well, actually, we did score, but it was offside from Coutinho. Bailey had
nice finish.
Yeah, Bailey had one as well that didn't manage to elevate any power into it, and I think it was Valface that ended up clearing it. But it's 3-2, and you still think here Leicester are quite weak-minded. I feel like mentally Leicester can be got out the longer this game's on, the further they're going to sit back. They're going to invite us on. They're down near the bottom. They're not the best defensively. If we stay at 1 goal behind going into the last 10 minutes, can we nick a point here? Can we do something? Because I got at half time, I still fancied us to go on and win, just because I know of Leicester's fragility.
So did I.
But then, of course, no, we can't do that. 79th minute. I mean, actually, I've not even said that at the start of the second half, Leicester should have put the game to bed, because again, I chose Mr. Sitter, and Tete, I think it was, went close as well. We were lucky again. Actually, I didn't score that 1-on-1 because it should have been. That ball was too easy through the whole game. I said something on Twitter that the midfield was too easy to play through. The centre backs were as well. The middle of the park in general was too easy to play through. I thought Louise was good going forwards. I thought defensively, the 2 defensive midfielders and the centre back didn't have a good day. And the ball, kind of an aimless ball or a hopeful ball, I would say, over the top for the 4th. That ball shouldn't be that easy to play anyway, but Moreno's there on the scene to deal with it. Doesn't deal with it. Again, Martinez comes flowing out, and I would say, again, does he need to come out that quickly? Gets nowhere near it, and Pratt scores and puts the ball in the back of the net and puts the game to bed. So, again, it's a case of we just didn't learn from anything throughout the game, because if we made a mistake, we went and made the same mistake again and conceded again. So Villa just didn't learn anything throughout that whole game, Neil, because the 4th goal was pretty similar to the 3rd, really.
Yeah, and Unai Emery cut that figure in his post-match afterwards that would be the most annoying thing for him. like, teams lose, and Aston Villa lose more than most teams, so I don't think we had any divine right to win any games, obviously, but the fan base are upset yesterday, and they're upset because we conceded 4 goals, and they're upset that we conceded 4 similar goals. A lot of the comments I've been getting on Twitter, and you can't disagree with them, are that we learn nothing. This back four learns nothing. I've seen splash screens up of when Dean Smith was here. They were down, the defensive performances of the team were down 19th in the league and stuff like that. It's difficult to I suppose, for that consistency to be changed overnight under Unai Emery. And the issues of defending have gone back 3 years in this team. Since we've come to the Premier League. Save for that first quarter of the season under Dean Smith, when we were on that run, and obviously the 7-2 and so on. But that's the frustrating part then, and that's really what this game will be remembered for. The lack of leadership is what I'm going to say. The lack of on-field leadership to be able to turn around and say, right, lads, we're after going 2-1 up. We conceded a howler of a first goal.
Sorry to interrupt you. There's leaders on the pitch, though. Martinez, Young, Mings. They're 3 leaders, I would say. They're all leaders.
Well, then in this game, our leadership has let us down. If you're saying that Martinez came out and could have done better, Mings could have done better, and Ashley Young was part of that back four. Okay, Ashley Young wasn't to blame for any of those. And we mentioned Luca Dean might be part of the leadership group as well. If it's our leaders that are making mistakes, then where's the leadership coming from on the field after them is the question, Like John Terry, you go back to John Terry type there. He maybe doesn't make those mistakes, and that's why he's a fantastic leader. Or if he does make mistakes, he learns from it. I don't know. As I say, it's like you can't concede 4 similar goals like that and then not and have that atmosphere of being fully in control of.
They're 4 really bad goals. They are 4 really bad goals. You can't and I understand the reaction to the goals that we've conceded, but I do think the overall reaction is a little bit dramatic. Social media is dramatic. I think so too, yeah. Because you'd think, by the way some people are speaking, we'd lost 5 in 8, but we've actually won 5 in 8 games. And the way we're playing and the style of football Emery's trying to implement, there probably will be games like this, but we will win games as well. But we have won games playing that way. So you've got to take the rough with the smooth a little bit. I think the problem is that it now, because we haven't strengthened in January, really, it now is like, right,
that's the other point, Dan.
Yeah, from that point of view, yesterday's the worst kind of game we could have had straight after the transfer window, because people are upset about the transfer window. I think
another game's coming.
And but I wouldn't bet against us picking something up in either of those games. I think Man City can be got at, and Arsenal have lost yesterday, albeit a different kind of defeat. Man City aren't the team that they've been over the last couple of years. At the moment, they've got a fragility in there. I'm sure they'll sort it out by the time the weekend comes, but there is a fragility there at the moment. But I think one of the main points of angst for the Villa fans is that this time last year, kind of, even though we did strengthen in January, but the Steven Gerrard second half of the season, there was a lot of credence put on, I need the summer. Now, Emery's not saying that in his defence. He's not saying that at all. He's preferred to wait till the summer to get in the players that he wants, the type of players, the type of quality that he wants, which if that's what he's decided, Unai Emery to me has earned the right in his career to make that decision. And I don't think we can argue it too much. If there'd been a player there that he'd wanted, the club would have bought it. So from people behind the scenes as well, fair enough, that they were prepared to back the manager. The manager has decided himself that I don't want to do anything in January because there isn't the right profile of player. But because we were in this position this time last year of kind of writing off a season, I think there's a few similar, although I think it's very different, there is a few similarities. So I think that's where the frustration's coming from a little bit, if that makes sense.
I agree. Yeah, there is a bit of, I was asked to wait last year. I'm being asked to wait again this year. How much longer do I have to wait for? And that's completely understandable.
The prices and stuff have gone up as well, haven't they? So that doesn't help.
Is it. Yeah. And that's completely, from being a Cleveland Browns fan in the NFL as well, you can only be asked to wait for so long. And as I say, with this, I think though, my thought process on it is Unai Emery is worth waiting for because he's an actual manager, as opposed to somebody who was a perceived aura coming in and we all knew would have had to. Well, I suppose we all hoped wouldn't have, but in our heart of hearts knew would have had to learn how to play in the Premier League. And when you look at the results Unai Emery has got since he's come in, you look at the results like Sean Dyche. Well, the results that Sean Dyche has gotten since he's come in, there's a big argument to be made about that you need to have your apprenticeship in the Premier League or in a league culpable or comparable to the Premier League prior to taking on the job, because sometimes the big names don't work out, and as I say, I'm happy to wait for Unai Emery for the summer. But as you say, there will be a big magnifying glass over the club from its own fans this summer, and that's okay too. I think the club can rise and meet the moment for it.
The trouble is where Gerrard burnt this club like an unbelievable amount for many, many ways. But the fans were served up a lot of dross in the period of 6 to 8 months, and Unai Emery's he doesn't deserve to, but because of those frustrations are carried on, there'll be more frustration aimed at him or aimed at his team at the moment than maybe there should be, because we've been burnt, because it was such a bad appointment. The club lost a year at least with that appointment, and then they've picked up a manager that I think over time will get that year back, because I think we will accelerate under this manager, because he is a renowned manager. He's a world level manager, Unai Emery. But I can get the frustrations. The atmosphere yesterday was a strange one, really, because I do think the crowd was behind for long parts of the game, and when you make 4 mistakes for goals, there's going to be frustrations. But there is a low tolerance level at Villa Park anyway. I'm not just talking about yesterday. I'm just talking about in general. So sometimes, and Unai Emery's talking about trying to make that connection, and I feel he's really trying. And I'm not having to go at the fans at all, because, as I say, yesterday 4 goals were bad, but I do think as a fan base at the games we can do a little bit more. I just think I think Unai Emery is owed that a little bit. 5 wins from 8 from the fixtures we've had is still a fantastic return, and way more than anyone could have possibly predicted. If you look at those fixtures, I don't think even the most optimistic Villa fan would have predicted 5 wins from 8 in those games.
I didn't then.
No, so yeah, you are optimistic, and I'm pretty optimistic as well. Although definitely beaten out of me over the years, because I'm nowhere near as optimistic as I would have been a few years ago. But if you take away yesterday and just look at the fact that we've won 5 in 8, there's progress made. And even yesterday, having lost, I still saw things in the game that I liked. From Villa, it was the same when we lost to Liverpool. I still saw things that I liked there. When we were losing under the previous manager, I was seeing nothing that I liked at all. We were losing, and I hated it. Although I didn't enjoy yesterday because we've been turned over 4-2 and we've given away silly goals, I can still see that, there is things there. We are trying to play a certain way. It's not gone well, but we are trying to play a certain way. We are dangerous when we attack. So there are things to hang your hat on. And we did get to see a new striker as well. A brief cameo from him, but he looked pretty lively in the latter stages of the game when he came on old Jahan Duran. Yeah.
And I think that's probably the way it is. And I'm not telling you we should finish the podcast now, but maybe finishing on a positive.
It's coming to an end.
Okay, but finishing on a positive, I think, is the right thing to do, because Emi Buendia had one of his best games in a Villa shirt yesterday. Philippe Coutinho comes on. He looked lively. That ball that he played through for Ollie Watkins, when I really, and it's the one, it frustrated me more than the one that the keeper got a touch to, where it didn't hit off him and go into the back of the net, because it looked like he was gun shy. He went to take a shot and he faked it and then took another touch, and Harry Souttar gets his leg in to take that ball away from him. The Leon Bailey chance that you mentioned, the Jacob Ramsey chances in the first half. I think the chance creation we had was very promising yesterday.
Yeah.
Moreno created a lot of chances when he came on. I thought Coutinho looked good and okay, but as I said, we just couldn't put it in the back of the net.
It would have done Coutinho so much good to have that goal. I do wonder what would have happened if that had counted. That would have really boosted him. I think you could almost see the relief in his celebration coming out of him, and then it's been obviously it was offside. It's been taken away. He just needs something to just go right for him, Coutinho, and it maybe just kickstarts his time at Villa a little bit. I don't think it's lack of effort. I really don't. We know he's got a bit of ability. It's just for whatever reason not been clicking into gear. I don't think it helped him being relied upon to provide the magic moments in Steven Gerrard's system before. I think that's probably not helped him at all. And I know you were trying to end the podcast on a positive, but I did notice something at the game yesterday, which is a little bit of a negative, but it was just something that I picked up on and I noticed, and it was just that Matty Cash replaced Ashley Young And there was a few things he did, and I'm not, I probably wouldn't have even said they were that bad. But Unai Emery was losing his mind at Cash a couple of times on the touchline for whatever he was doing. So I think that says a lot about maybe why Ashley Young is perhaps doing more of what Unai Emery wants, tucking in than perhaps Matty Cash is, because Emery threw his arms up in the air and lost his cool at Cash a couple of times. I noticed during the game, so that's something to keep your eye up on. I wouldn't expect Matty Cash to be coming back in the team anytime soon if Emery's reaction to a couple of elements of his play is anything to go by. A few people in the comments talking about the atmosphere. What was the one I saw? The booing at half time, Stuart Todd. I don't get that. It's never been something that I think you can discount the relegation season, because I think I probably did do it then. But booing at half time, especially when you've just won, was it 5 from 7 at the time as well? Yes, we're all upset that we were 2-1 up and with 3-2 down. But I never understand booing at half time. That's not something that I've ever understood. Craig Kempson, we're not going to be winning every game. Emery is making us better, but we can't win everything. I think there are enough positives to take from the game that we accept the occasional loss and move on. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with it, Craig. You've explained it probably better than I did. If you fancy hosting a podcast, let me know, because obviously you'd be better at it than me, because you've articulated that way better than I tried to about 5 minutes ago. So that does us. Thanks to Neil for joining me from his childhood bedroom. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I think we've unpicked that game pretty well, actually. I've enjoyed talking to you. Aston Villa 2, Leicester 4. Don't know why I felt the need to regurgitate the score. We all know what the score was. Thanks ever so much to Purity for continuing to sponsor us. If you use the code #VillaView, you'll get 10% off everything that Purity have to offer. What's the schedule looking like for the Villa View? So tomorrow, hopefully, well, we are doing it, so it should be the return of 1870. There goes Neil again. The return of 1874. It'll be on the Villa View's YouTube, and I believe Neil is now in charge of audio distribution as well. So it should be on all audio platforms as well, because I know that was how 1874 used to be with Greg Evans. So we're making sure that gets on the audio on the channel as well. So if you've missed 1874, or even if you've never listened to it in your life, Greg from The Athletic and myself will be recording a podcast tomorrow talking all things Villa. Omar and myself are supposed to be doing a transfer video at some point as well. We'll get that in the schedule. And then, of course, we'll be back with the match preview on Thursday for the Man City game, and then the Stato preview as well on Friday. So plenty of stuff coming up on the Villa View. As I say, trying to ramp it up at the moment and get pretty much daily content out there. We've got a bit of a schedule going. We're doing our best. We're trying to make things happen. So, bear with us, and there'll be plenty of content for you this week. Again, thanks to Neil. Thanks to Adam as well. No mistakes. Absolute unbelievable scenes from Adam. The Villa back four have an absolute nightmare, and the producer has his best game ever. So hopefully it's back to normal with Adam having a nightmare next weekend and Villa being solid and defending astutely. Thanks ever so much for watching. Up the Villa.